I met him at a car service station. It was a sticky summer afternoon, and my BMW had a brake issue. I remember being annoyed at the inconvenience, impatiently checking my phone while the mechanic explained the delay. That's when he walked over, grease-streaked hands, navy jumpsuit, and the kind of smile that made you forget your irritation. His name was Adeel. Unlike the others, he didn't just talk about spark plugs or rotors. He asked about me, about what I did, what music I liked, whether I'd ever been to Hunza. It felt refreshingly unforced. He didn't treat me like a rich client or a pretty face, just a person. And for someone who spent most of her life being viewed as a walking bank balance, that meant something. We started small. Coffee runs, long drives, hours sitting in his tiny studio apartment, legs tangled as we planned impossible futures. His life was modest. Mine wasn't. But we never let that get in the way. I fell hard. After a year, I bought him a new place. Nothing extravagant, just a one-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of town. But it was his. Ours. He resisted at first, too proud to accept it. But I told him it wasn't charity. It was love. He said he'd never betray it. We dated for 5 years. And for 5 years, I convinced myself that love could bridge any gap. I ignored the growing distance. The late-night shifts he never explained. The perfume I didn't wear lingering on his clothes. The subtle change in how he touched me. Routine replacing passion. Then one night, I decided to surprise him. I left work early, grabbed his favorite snacks, a bottle of wine, and the keys to the apartment I had once handed him with a kiss. It was raining as I drove over, the kind of soft drizzle that made the city shimmer. I let myself in quietly, expecting to find him asleep or watching one of those crime shows he loved. But I didn't find just him. I found her. She was wearing one of his shirts, my favorite one on him. Her laugh came from the kitchen, light and familiar in a way that stung. He emerged behind her, shirtless, hair tousled, his hands resting on her hips like it was the most natural thing in the world. He froze when he saw me. Her laughter died mid-note. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just placed the wine and snacks on the table, like a ghost retracing its own steps. "I came to surprise you," I said quietly. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to explain. I didn't stay long enough to hear. That night, I drove aimlessly for hours, past the places we once made memories, past the street vendors we used to eat from, past every version of us that once felt real. I ended up outside the service station where it all began, staring at the closed gates through the rain-streaked windshield. I gave him a home, a life, a love he claimed he never had before. All he gave me was a lesson that some hearts only take. They don't know how to hold what's real. The next morning, I called my lawyer. The apartment's deed was still in my name. Some gifts can be taken back. Others, like trust once broken, can never be repaired. And so I walked away, not because I had to, but because I finally saw what loving myself looked like. It didn't look like him. I didn't block his number. Not right away. For the next few days, he called, texted, left long voice notes, filled with stumbling apologies, excuses wrapped in desperation. "It didn't mean anything," he said. "She was just a mistake. I messed up. Please, just talk to me." But every word fell hollow. The version of him I had loved, the one who smiled with oil-stained hands and asked me about the stars, he was long gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who took my heart and wore it like a jacket he could throw over any stranger's shoulders. I went to the apartment once more, alone. During the day, he wasn't there. I packed the few things I left behind. A shawl in the closet, my toothbrush, the photo of us at Lake Saif al-Muluk, the one I'd framed and placed on his nightstand. I took it all, then stood in the middle of the empty living room, listening to the echo of 5 years dissolve into silence. The silence was kinder than he had been. Later, my lawyer served him notice. He'd have 30 days to vacate the apartment. He didn't fight it. Maybe he knew he'd already lost the only thing that mattered. But this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the slow rise from the rubble. At first, the nights were the hardest. I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there, haunted by memories that felt more vivid than my reality. I'd sit at the edge of my bed wondering if I was foolish for loving him or brave. And little by little, I stopped blaming myself. I started painting again, something I'd given up when we moved in together. I traveled. I met new people who saw me not as a bank account or convenience, but as a woman still unfolding. I even passed by the service station one day. It had a new sign, a new crew. He was gone, and strangely I felt nothing. That's when I knew I was healing, not because I didn't feel pain anymore, but because I finally stopped making excuses for his. Love should never cost your self-worth. I gave him an apartment. He gave me a scar. But I gave myself the rest of my life. And that was the best gift of all. Months passed. The pain dulled. Not all at once, but slowly, like a bruise fading beneath the skin. I no longer flinched at the sound of his name. I stopped checking my phone late at night. Stopped hoping to see one of those desperate messages. Eventually, they stopped coming altogether. I didn't respond to any of them. Closure didn't come from his words. It came from my silence. One morning, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, the one I now lived in again, alone but peaceful, watching the city wake up. A soft breeze curled around me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt light, whole, not because I filled the space he left behind, but because I learned to live with it. I turned it into something useful, something stronger. I started volunteering on weekends, helping underprivileged women learn business skills. Women like the one I had been before I found my way. I told them about self-worth, about recognizing red flags, about the difference between rescuing someone and being used by them. I never mentioned his name, but they understood the story written behind my eyes. One of them asked me once, "Would you ever fall in love again?" I smiled, not the kind of smile that hides hurt, but one that knows its way around it. "Yes," I said, "but next time, I won't mistake potential for a promise." A year later, I met someone, not at a service station, not in some grand, dramatic moment. He was a friend of a friend, someone quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who asked how your day really was and actually listened when you answered. There was no wild spark at first, no overwhelming wave, just warmth, steady, real. This time, I didn't give away pieces of myself to earn affection. I brought my whole self to the table and expected the same in return. And one evening, as we stood together in my living room, the same one where I once felt so shattered, I looked around and realized something. The apartment was no longer tied to the betrayal. It was mine again, mine to fill with laughter, art, music, silence, whatever I chose. No ghosts lingered in the corners. Just me, standing tall in a space I reclaimed, heart wide open, not for someone else to save, but to share. I had loved deeply. I had hurt deeply. And now I lived deeply. And that was more than enough. The first time he saw me again was by accident. I was at a cafe near the city center, flipping through a notebook and sipping on chai when I felt someone's eyes on me. I looked up, and there he was, Adeel, older, thinner. The confident smirk he once wore had withered into something smaller. Regret, maybe, recognition. He gave a hesitant smile and took a step forward, like he might say something. But I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I simply smiled, calm, complete, and returned to my notebook. He paused, then walked on. That moment was the ending I never knew I needed. Not dramatic, not loud, just clarity. He had been a chapter, not the whole book. And as I sat in the golden afternoon light, pen in hand, peace wrapped around me like an old friend. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was better.